And the recording has started.
Okay, great. Okay, so Philippe, I guess it's your show.
Yes. That's my show. So hello everyone and welcome to the TC54 Technical Task Group or Task Group 2 meeting for the standardization of Perl at Ecma. And so as a reminder for everyone, first the call is subject to the code of conduct, which is available in the project repo. I'm going to paste the link there just for reference so everybody is aware. Be nice and behave. I'm going to get a quick roll call, but before we take the roll call, I'd like to make sure we can review the meeting notes and approve them for the last call. Okay, I've posted the code of conduct in the chat for reference.
Right.
Okay, we have the previous meeting notes, which is from June 20th. And I'm pasting them again in the chat room, in the chat channel there. Is there any concern, any thing that needs to be updated there? Otherwise, they're considered approved. If there's something you see that doesn't add up, you can always submit a PR or reach out afterwards.
Yeah, just a quick comment, Philippe, just to let Steve know that we're trying to, streamline the amount of work goes into this. So our latest mode is to take the Gemini transcript, check it for obvious errors like spelling Perl, P-E-A-R-L, or whatever those kind of things are, and lightly editing it. But we're not trying, our viewpoint is that we can get that out there. People want the details that has the timestamps of the video. So we've got everything out there. We're just trying to limit the amount of human work involved because the notes are actually quite good. The Gemini summary and the Gemini notes. So that's kind of what you're looking at there.
Yeah.
Nice.
Okay, so unless there's an objection, these are approved. And next we'll go through a roll call. So John, is there something you want to bring up?
Nothing in particular, Philippe.
Michael?
My item's already in the agenda.
Okay. And Steve?
Same thing I always ask, timelines for when we can start the document creation.
Right. So that's our first agenda item from my side.
Yeah. And on my side, just a review of the current milestone, which is already in the
agenda. Yeah, that's our first
the
one.
agenda. And specifically, so I'm adding the agenda. So review milestone and have a look at the JSON schema briefly for the Perl types.
Yep.
Right. I've just pushed something today, but I've worked quite a bit on that, so it still needs a bit refinement. It's a bit of a departure from, well, it's built on and a departure from your original work, Steve. So I want to socialize that with you.
Cool.
Okay. So the update is Philippe and John and I have been working on the standard milestone, and we're down to the Perl type issue and pull request as the active items. Obviously, we didn't make June 30, so I'm suggesting July 7 is our new target to finish the standard. Reviewing these, I'll call them items, or I guess tickets for Perl requests and I'm sorry, pull requests and issues. Involved a lot of different things. Quite a few of them were closed. A few were moved to discussions, and one of the things we're trying to encourage is people to use discussions when it's just an open topic, not actually some action that's been indicated. I know that's not super common in GitHub, but it seems like a better way to do things. So two new questions came in. They're helpfully marked question under the title, and I just said, okay, here's some answers, and we're moving on to the Q&A. But the biggest thing in sort of the background is a lot of these issues in particular covered a lot of different topics. So we are going back and asking people to reframe those because we're separating the standard piece from the rest of the spec. And I'll get to some more of that. So in terms of getting to the standard milestone, the second thing, Stephen, was a question for you. I'm trying to figure out how you construct it. So I created a document. Let me get the, I just created it as we discussed last meeting. It's where is this one? Copy the link. I just created something as a placeholder for what it should look like. I just put that in the chat, and essentially I borrowed from the structure of the CycloneDX. I took the text that was in your spec.html file as the boilerplate or whatever as the best as anything for a starting point. Kind of tried to sketch out what the sections would look like by pulling things from the current the relevant sections from the Perl specification RST, and then mocked up something on the back end for how the Perl type data will look after it's extracted with the magical tools. And realizing that's not it. But one of the questions I had immediately was, I can't detect myself looking at the various repos where you actually keep, for instance, the the standardized text, so it could be edited. So obviously the normative and stuff, not so worried about, but when we start talking about what is a Perl and so on, I think we're going to want people to comment. So can you help me understand where that is, or how we should, I'm less worried about where it is in CycloneDX, but how should we organize it on the Perl spec side so that we have these distinct sections and we're not having these issues and pull requests that span so many things, because then we get back to the problem we currently have. So that's
right. This, no, thank you for that. This document will provide a really good starting point for me. I've posted the repo. It's a temporary location. Once the Ecma number gets assigned, that URL will change. It might be, Ecma 500-Perl or whatever.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's where all the text of the standards is going to live, and it's going to live in a file called spec.html.
So we actually have to put in, okay, well, I saw the spec.html, but my assumption was that wasn't how we would maintain the data. So that's my concern. If we're going to put something out there for the intro section, we want people to comment and make changes. That's not going to be very, I don't know how you can use that, right? I'm not familiar, but HTML, I just pulled text from, so there isn't is there a mechanism we can use in the meantime, again, RST files or something, and just break it out in those, like part of it is if we get the numbered sections, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever, and we could name those RST files after those sections. Would that be something you could process on your end into the HTML?
Yeah, I mean, we could break it down into individual sections, right? And allow people to comment on that. That doesn't really help us for, I mean, we'll have to take all that information and essentially discard it, because ultimately it needs to go into the spec HTML.
So how is that maintained though? I mean, isn't that generated from something, or I'm sorry, I'm just.
No.
So you just handwrite HTML as the spec?
For CycloneDX, we auto-generate it from JSON schema. So the JSON schema in CycloneDX is the authoritative source of truth for the human readable specification. So we automatically generate that.
But that doesn't cover the intro sections, right? How do you do the narrative sections? Because we have more narrative sections in Perl than we do for CycloneDX.
Right. We've got a script that, what does it do? We have individual HTML files that are currently like merged in during a build process is essentially what happens. We can't use Markdown or RST because that requires some kind of conversion, and there's no like one-to-one conversion between like You can convert between like Markdown or RST and HTML, but you can't necessarily do it with EC markup. So that's kind of the caveat.
Okay, not the magic bullet I was looking for, but okay, we'll figure something out. Okay.
Yep.
I didn't, I thought I was missing something about the HTML. Okay. Because I think we do have, as I'm proposing it, it's not our purpose to have the, everything we could ever say about what is a Perl or what is a package in the standard. We want to have a summary, and then we'll have other discussions and all kinds of other stuff, right? So we just need to distill it down to something concrete. Yeah. But the difference, I think, in Perl versus a difference in Perl and CycloneDX is we have this definitional section, and I don't know if there's a JSON schema for the components, but I haven't seen evidence that that's what we're doing. So it's more of a narrative structure, right? Versus the Perl types, which should fit the model of generating from the JSON schema.
Right. I will say, outside of tables and a few other things, and I know like there is a table in that document, but outside of tables and maybe a few other things, the number of HTML tags is fairly limited. They rely a lot on CSS and the print CSS, which most browsers don't even support. But they rely heavily on that stuff. So you'll see very limited number of tags in the HTML.
Okay, that's just, okay, so that answers that question. Great. So the next question coming up, and Matt's joined us. Welcome, Matt. What I've been trying to, so we're closing in on the standard, the Ecma standard milestone, and sooner than later we need to reorganize the files in the current GitHub repo so that we can make them more manageable. And that's the reconfiguration ultimately is a task that John and I need to take on. But I'm trying to figure out what that actually looks like. So one of those questions comes back to the website and documentation in general. And again, looking at CDX as an example, I noticed a lot of very long README files, which not super fond of, very, very long. And then there's some read the docs, and there's some, and then there's the SBOM guide, which is a wonderful, comprehensive thing. But I think that's a little, we can have a Perl guide at some time. I don't think that's our starting point. So the question is sort of, how do we handle this? How does it fit with the website? On the About Code side, we're used to using RST and Sphinx and publishing it to read the docs. And personally, I still think read the docs is a very good place to do things. In my research, I found out there's something called MK docs with Markdown that uses an RTD theme. I thought it was RTD, but it's not really. And then obviously there's the Docusaurus, which I'll let Matt speak in a minute. But I noticed, for instance, an example of this site called relay.dev. And they have a doc at the top, and they're generating the doc in something very similar to an RTD, table of contents. And that's what I'm concerned about versus a traditional website. It's fairly complex territory. You need a multi-level table of contents. I don't think our actual content is incredibly complicated, but that's it. So I was trying to figure out how we want to approach that website with some embedded doc, and then we organize our files under the repo to match to that, or website and maybe a read the docs or a dedicated documentation page. We're obviously a ways from that, but somehow we have to figure out how we're going to organize with that target in mind. So that's I don't know the answer. That's my question.
Well, so first of all, I was late because I actually got off a call with my two developers who are disappearing, and they're also taking vacation when I'm there. We went through the issue up and all the items. But my perspective and my plan of action has not changed, which is we're working on what we have tangibly right now. I'm looking at the website as a set of real estate. That real estate we have to work with. We're going to make we're going to be compatible and look like the country of CycloneDX in terms of theme and general layout approach.
Yep.
We're going to borrow from its color themes and all those things like that. In fact, I just sent the website repo, and we have a plan of action. So the things we bolted, the things we have, if there are things that we feature and we work on specifically, they're going to go in the banner. and be top level things in the banner. And all the related work is up. There'll be places, we're organizing them into little groups at the bottom and the footer. And the middle, we're going to try to, I discussed a really cool thing I hope you'll like, which I want to surprise you with for the middle. But we're going to make the basically create some animations that make Perl look cool and basically draws attention to different. So basically, we're going to focus on the Perl types and show examples and do like a rotating animated Git and things like that. And we don't have companies necessarily backing us, but we're going to actually try to feature like the package managers and stuff as well, so you can see logoing and things like that. So I think it'll be pretty exciting. But again, I've advised them, we're going to plan for real estate. We're going to probably show you grayed out links of things we think might appear that we reference or might appear where they could go. But we'll have actual links, that will be the normal theme color for things where we have content. And whatever
Taking us.
But let me finish one thing before I lose my thoughts. Please allow me. So again, I would encourage you wherever possible to use Markdown as your source material for ease of contributions and editing. But it's the size of the spec and the stuff we've encountered, REST files and that. We look at Pandoc can do it, or my guys could write. Actually could write the content's so simple that we could write our own Bash script. To like convert the stuff. So we're not dealing with the complexities of Cyclone and Tool Center and all those things, right? So I think I don't overthink and structure things for the website. Structure things for accessibility to developers and be able to write GitHub issues against and submit pull requests against. That's my advice. And then that'll naturally fit into a docu-source, which is basically for that. It's a static site meant to work off of Markdown. So that helps us out a lot.
Right. Well, and that's certainly the goal here too. Is again reorganizing this in a way that not only the long run people can work with it, but in the sprint now, the sprint from now to December to get this done. That we actually have things where we can have, it organized best as well as we can, so that people can make their specific comments. And of course, a pull request can reference multiple files and so on. But looking at that target, so I understand the Markdown point.
Yeah, so like we're doing our best. So my daughter is a civil engineer, and she works for the Texas Highway, for a company like submits bids to the Texas Highway Department. So she was telling me they have a project that's been around for 2 years, and the problem is subdivided. And so they created a plan for this road system, but in the interim, they actually contracted and built out and created all the utilities. And so now they've got to redo the road plans that are too. So we can adapt. We can adapt the master plan of our highway where we send people to on the Pearl Highway exchange system. Put your utilities in place, put your water, your sewage, wherever you want it. We can adapt the overall road plan. Okay, no big deal.
Okay, so the message I'm taking is think about Markdown, which I think is fine. I still going to think about some kind of index to the documentation. We don't need deep right now, but I mean, as it gets more expansive, it's going to make sense.
No, yeah, we're so again, we don't have a lot. We're actually struggling. We don't have enough content because
even so. Sorry to interject, but Michael, for instance, if we're going to switch to one file for each package type, eventually we may have 50 files, out of which we want to generate 50 Markdown. Generating an index for that is something that can be taken care of.
I'm not worried about Perl types at all. I'm assuming Perl types just go into the magical JSON schema engine. I'm talking about the other structure.
Yeah, but what's
the standard? What's the broader spec? What are the different ways we organize the documentation? If you will, the how-to documentation. Not having, I don't think, the content or just the wherewithal to do a single guide. That's one way approach. Another approach is just chock full the README. I guess I'm not in charge, but I really don't like the READMEs that go on for 6 pages. So I think
you need some
middle
kind of
ground is some
guidance
kind
or
of structured
fact.
doc. Yeah, we have tons of
you
this
need guidance,
content. The
you
problem
need
is it's not well organized, so that we can publish it.
Right.
We've got tons of it all over issues.
So
and pull
you're trying to
requests.
find a middle ground between a long running thing and this monstrous thing that CycloneDX has for the guide. You need something kind of in the middle.
Right. Yeah. Our content. Yeah, but we want to have much better how-to. Right. We have like 2 big. It's the how-to, the testing, all the things that really make the spec, but don't have to be in the standard. And I absolutely, I'm absolutely assuming we have JSON schema magic for anything that's in the JSON schema. So that'll just get generated. This is about the, for want of a better word, the narrative content. So I'll come back with a more concrete proposal, but I just wanted to socialize that.
Speaking about the narrative, I just want to make sure that we're not going too far in the weeds on all the technical stuff, because that's what we do. I want to just step back and make sure that we have messaging on the site, especially the homepage, that basically tells the audience what Perl is and why they should care.
Yeah. And so we have to answer, but even in that context, so if we wanted to discuss a topic that has a lot of distributed information, what is a package? Now, we're not going to define that canonically for the world, but we have to have some perspective, because that question comes in all the time. When you say, so what do we mean? And I'm not trying to solve that now, but that's an example of something that will take a page, just to really be clear, because it's just a bit, what's the difference between a package and a component and so on. So how do we deal with that?
I think that can be done through a modest document. I think, to me, I hear you need to create an FAQ, and then after the FAQ reaches a critical mass, you decide if it deserves to be turned into a guide. I think that's the natural evolution of what we're talking about.
Well, there's a couple of things on that. So first, we have to have some level of that information in the standard at a summary level. Then, the FAQ or whatever it is. But we just have to have some structure for that. And these things are to get pretty long. So that's my concern is how do we do a little better job at the beginning? I'm not suggesting an nth degree, but our current organization is a bit too simplistic. So going to my next item, for example, it seems to me makes sense we should have separate folders for Perl and VERS, or some way to distinguish, because those are separate projects. I don't know if Perl type should have a second one. Where tests going to live. We just got this very simple structure today. And again, we can come back with a more concrete proposal, but that'd be one example. I think Perl and VERS are not the same thing. They're closely related. They're separate. Probably makes sense to do something like create folders for Perl and VERS that are separate.
With one caveat, you don't want to have too much nesting.
Yeah, I'm not, this is just one level. I'm just talking about the top level. And then the question would be, the next question is, do we have a separate folder for Perl types, because there's all this automation that's going to happen, or not? I'm not sure what the answer is. I just want to have a bit of a plan to get to the next level, not to the nth level, but the next level, so that we can better organize the work. Because what we're going to be trying to do is we're going to have a lot of work between now and December to get people re-engaged who may have disengaged because we were moving too slowly, whatever. And a better process to get closure on these things, not counting the 100 and whatever open items that we're still dealing with. I'm just trying to find a triage plan on that. So
we're getting better there, by the way.
Well, definitely getting better. But yeah, John and I are well, John was already doing it. I'm doing it now. So like the other day, first thing I do in the morning is I check what's new and incoming. So yesterday I managed to answer 2 questions and move them to discussions, and small victory, but these are things we need to do. And then I think that shows people that it's active and being watched, and therefore I think I hope that will encourage more people, right? Because if you post questions and nobody answers, then you go away and people don't come. So I'm trying to figure out how we can do that, because we really want to get a lot of input between now and then to December, and there's a lot of dormant discussions, but the Golang, all those sorts of things, and we haven't even tackled those at all, right? We haven't tackled those from an outbound perspective, right? We've got all the issues out there and the pull requests, but we have not tackled them. And there's some level of reorganizing all the discussion, probably into new issues and PRs that are more, we got stuff going back to 2018. So and I think we have to, we're taking an approach that some of this stuff is stale, and we've answered everywhere, and we can't answer every one of 50 comments on a thread. I mean, just it's not feasible.
So am I hearing that we need a special triaging section, or we need to quickly go through and assess a high level, priority for them, or seeing no longer relevant or high priority or low priority? And
well, we're doing some of that, Matt, but right now I don't think we're even, what I'm trying to get is organized so we can do that, right? We did that by pulling things out from the morass into the standard and into the core spec milestones.
Okay.
And then there's all this other stuff. So that's something John and I will work on proposing and organizing, but it's sort of getting to that level of structure so we could have that. So, you know,
Gotcha.
and part of this is outreach, right? So at some point, I'd anticipate we would have one of these meetings or maybe a special meeting and try and have a discussion of just the go-lang stuff, you know, with enough prep time, weeks of prep time, so that the parties have a chance to speak on that topic.
I think that I might say that it might be, since you indicate things go back to 2018, which is scary that these people
Yeah.
still, if they still care and if they still exist anymore,
Yeah.
and they still care, I think that it would be good to compile a list of individuals who represent each of the language communities, package communities that we know of, and create a dedicated mailing list when we're ready to say, solicit with a deadline some feedback or
right.
review. So,
and part of that is also getting the mailing list. So I put actually discussion item out for that. John Maroney replied about, you know, not worrying about it too much. The question was, would you do Groups.io or Google Groups, which seem to be the two, you know, reasonably free and open options. But yes, exactly that idea. And just, you know, whatever the communities are. I mean, Yocto, almost everybody's on one humongous issue, right? But you can't follow it anymore. So say, okay, can we get the Yocto people, particularly this Ethbomb guy at Yocto, and have some dedicated forum? Doesn't have to be a meeting, but saying, okay, we're going to focus on Yocto as a package type. It's a lot of it come down to package types, right? And I absolutely agree. We can try and compile a list of that's a good idea of who's commented on the various on the various areas.
If there's a compiled list, I think I worry about currency and figure out if we have an active, a new sheriff in town for a community.
Yeah. Well, yeah, but you put the word out to who we know, right? And we could add people that we know otherwise, but it's also kind of, you know, the whole thing is the lazy consensus. If the people who were to be interested are no longer interested, then that'll solve it.
Here's the beautiful part, that now that we have this awesome formal structure in place, we talked last week about creating releases and things like that, you know, I think that if we created targeted requests to specific large communities where we're actually interested in adoption and traction, the big ones, the others will come. If you build it, they will come. And as long as they have a vehicle that would a release vehicle where they can comment and guarantee whatever changes they need to make or can appear in a subsequent release on a guaranteed release schedule, I think that the rest can be, it's critical mass. I think I think at this point it's about marketing and advertising and making sure that we cement positive feedback and positive assessments from communities that get the most popular languages and communities that exist today.
Yeah, I think just for clarification purposes, we're using the term outreach as opposed to marketing, just to be clear that it's a, you know,
same thing. That dirty word came off my lips. I'm like, I hate saying that, but you know,
it's exactly the same. Well, it's just like nonprofit company versus, you know, it's just terminology. But yeah, I agree with that, and we are targeting. You know, we have the major implementations, and then we have other knowledge about what are the primary Perl types. But just a better way to organize it. We discussed this over the last 2 weeks, working with Philippe on the open items. You know, can we do a change log? And I think we just can't do a change log for version 0.90 of the standard or the spec, because there's just too much amorphous history. But one of the things we can do once we have a milestone is we can start having change logs, right? So that people can look at what the changes were. Right now, just put the stake in the ground, and then from the stake forward, we can do some tracking. But
and AI can help us generate those change logs so they can actually automate the releases to identify the commits and the changes for us.
Yeah, we've got that. And I was mentioning earlier in the call that we're switching to using pretty much the Gemini summaries and transcripts for the meetings, because they're quite good, sometimes humorous. Yeah, so great. Okay, well,
like a hallucinating humorous.
No, just interesting turns of phrase. You know, they don't tell jokes, but interesting. So I'm going to put a proposal together. Again, we have the GDoc share drive, a Google share drive for Perl. It's pretty much open to anyone with a link. Though, of course, G drive is a little funky. So if there's ever an issue, we look out for people asking for access. We'll refer you to it there. But we'll put together a proposal for the structure. Which then gets us to sort of the question of Perl types. I don't know whether Perl types should have its own top level folder or not because of the nature of the data. And that comes back to the JSON schema and the automation that we have there that we don't have in the other areas. I don't know if that's a jump off to you, Philippe, in your discussion of the JSON schema.
That could be a nice transition.
I'm trying.
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, let me share my screen briefly. So John and Michael have done an awesome work on the spec. So if we look at what we've left for the milestone where that was supposed to be finished 2 days ago, but that's going to be finished next week, the Ecma standard here. Really, the only thing that's left here is this Perl type definition here, the JSON schema. And so what I did, where are we? I'm a bit lost of a second. Yeah. So I pushed a PR. It's just work in progress, actually. Let me make sure it's converted to a draft. And the gist of the changes on the schema I've made on top of your PR, Steve. One is to simplify the index. I don't know if you remember, but you had an index where you could have a URL, a description, and a Perl type. Here, I think we can get something super simple, which is just an array of Perl type for the index. I understand the index was generated, but to avoid, having redundant information in 2 places, in case we ever need to update it manually, that would be my suggestion. And then the JSON schema for the Perl type, the big changes are to flatten the definitions, meaning you don't have too much nesting. And so practically, if we look at this as an example, practically what this means, for instance, if we go into the definition proper of the properties, so this has not changed. This has been refined a bit, and it's okay to put a few patterns left and right, by the way. These are defined as, in the JSON schema spec, as being Ecma 262 regex. So they're specified, so we're good there to use them within reason, and I may use more of them. But here, at the high level, we have the type, and I have prefix. So it's a flat structure. I have the type name, the type description. I've added reference URLs, which we have in many cases. And then the idea is to have for each sequence, each component, namespace definition, plus properties below that. These properties are really actually completely repeated across all the definition of each component, except for qualifiers. But I've changed a bit the formatting. Really, there's really one thing we can discuss, which is the fact whether it's case sensitive or not. And all the other normalization rules at the moment, they have to be textual because there's really not much else we can do. Take the case of Python, PyPI, where the normalization is to replace everything that's not, so every underscore are replaced by a dash, or every dash are replaced by underscore one way or the other. That's not something we can really put as something that's actionable. So the point here is to have a list of rules, native labeled, you had there. I've added notes to ensure we can have commentaries which are provided above and beyond. But that's the gist of it now. Instead of being nested with a definition, heading, and then values below, it's one less nesting, so it's a bit flatter. There's the things for qualifiers also, which is pretty much the same. I've changed and worked quite a bit on refining the description for each of these. Subpass qualifier. So I'm trying as much as possible to reuse the property definition, but I didn't find, and to the best of my knowledge, there's no way in JSON schema to avoid this kind of repetition here. You can use reference, but you cannot like define something which is not a schema to reuse, meaning you cannot define the whole property section, use some kind of macro. If it's not
you can use you can define a definition, and then you can say all of. There's a keyword in JSON schema called all of, and in that way, whatever you defined in that definition, all those properties of that definition will be applicable then.
So if I could put, for instance, all of that
in a
all
definition,
of these properties in a definition.
Yep, and then
all of and a reference.
Yes.
Awesome. Okay, that's wonderful, because that's going to make this much less repetitive. Because this section here is repeated over and over again. It's the same everywhere.
Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. So
no, I like this. I mean, I don't care one way or another. Flat, hierarchical, doesn't really matter. The only thing that I really cared about, really honestly, was like, did we want to include the case density? Did we want to include the normalization? What do we do about these outlier type of rules? And I think the approach that you have here probably makes sense.
I'm gonna do a pass to convert the types, key types we have, like you did here. I didn't do that yet. Looking especially at the odd ones. But the beyond case sensitivity, there's really, all the things are programmatic. And I wish there was a way to express that, but it's too complicated. So just a list of strings that describe, hey, convert this by replacing all the dash to an underscore, for instance. Ensure you don't have this and this character. So we can put patterns probably. That could be another way. Right now, I've just kept as a regex allowed characters. So allowed characters is defined here. So again, it's important because it's using the Ecma 262 dialect, which is specified in JSON schema. So something we don't have to deal with. And it's nice to have an Ecma spec related to an Ecma spec, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
It's good karma.
No disagreement. I do think, based on what you've done here, I do think we'll have to think about the conformance section in the standard, because I see basically two different levels of conformance. One, the base level of conformance, which can be completely automated, right, using the properties in this document, and an additional level of conformance that would take into consideration all of the human readable instructions that are specific to that Perl type. But for the standard itself, I think because this is going to be part of the standard, I think just that automatable part is what would be required.
So actually, let me show you the other stuff that I did. So I flattened the structure about the default repository. We have the examples, but then we have the test suite, which probably deserve maybe its own mini schema. So it could be reused also as a top-level test suite, which will drive the conformance. But the point here is to say we have, so what we have today as a test suite here, which is across all the different types, I've just mildly specified that as a JSON schema. Clarifying it because some people have concerns with that. And that would become the conformance. To conform, you have to ensure that you pass first level, the top level test suite, and second, that you pass the test suite for each of the Perl type definitions. And,
How are
and
we handling canonicalization? Because in
So
the
that's-
test suite, you got, yeah.
yeah, so the idea is to say here, we're going to have a test type. Actually, this is wrong, it should be a reference. It's an enum. But the test type is either we're trying to parse or to build. That's new, which we didn't have here. And then we have an input, which can be a string or an object. It's not test component. It's a string or an object. The object would be just basically an object with the parts here, the components. And then you have a test output, which is either string or test components. And if you build, then you're taking as an input the components, and you need to return a canonical Perl. If you parse, you're taking as an input a string, which may or may not be canonical, and you need to return decoded components. And if it's invalid, we have a flag for that. But then it's becoming much cleaner in the sense that the only thing we care for test is that you can either produce decoded components or produce a canonical Perl.
What I would recommend
Yeah, go ahead.
is what I would recommend. So I like the fact that the test information is going to be in the same JSON file as the definition itself. I think that makes a lot of sense. What I would like to see, however, is in this JSON schema, if you could make the test suite a sub schema,
Yeah,
we could evolve that independently of the main Perl type schema itself, which is going to be in the standard.
Yeah.
So if we come into corner cases in the test suite, we can evolve that. It won't have to touch the standard at all. That's basically what we do in Cyclone for like SPDX IDs, right? We have strict validation on the use of IDs, but those IDs change like 3-4 times a year, whatever that is, right? But we don't have to create a new version of CycloneDX every time that happens.
yeah. You should.
No!
We don't get paid by the versions, I'm afraid. So, you know.
Of course, of course, of course.
Yeah. One quick comment, Philippe. Please replace the word known with registered wherever you have it. We agreed that known is ambiguous and kind of useless. And in a previous meeting, we said we'd use the word registered in the near term.
There's
Meaning
no
that it's
reference
in
to known.
Yeah, there's a couple of those out there. So
Not in this schema.
okay, I thought I saw it in comments. Okay, great. I thought I saw it in one of the things.
No. I know that I
Okay.
removed everything that were known there.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, the known unknowns. Yeah, there we go. The known unknown Perl types, the unknown
See,
Perl
it's
types.
the registered Perl type.
Yes, that's what. Okay, good. Thank you.
Yeah, so there's a few
Okay.
changes I've made like that. And by the way,
Yeah.
also just as a side note here, we have these domains, and I've made already redirect. So Well, it's supposed to go there. It's supposed to go to the GitHub repo for now, but I don't know why it doesn't work. Okay, nothing works on my machine at the moment. New window.
I
Okay.
assume we're going to be hosting this with like GitHub or Cloudflare pages or something.
Not Cloudflare, but we can put that on GitHub pages. Yes.
Well,
That's weird.
GitHub
So
pages
when you-
has keep in mind that GitHub pages has a lot of limitations. So, for example, you can't put any security headers. You can't modify headers at all on GitHub
we-
pages.
yeah.
So,
Yeah, we can host that any place. That's not a problem. Yes. So there's really plenty of places where you can put that. We can put that on remote or else. That shouldn't be an issue. It's mostly it's going to be static code anywhere, right? With Docusaurus, Matt, right?
yeah, and there'll be JavaScript running. So, we'll need to make sure that we have the proper headers in place for content security policy and a bunch of other stuff. So,
That's weird. It used to work a couple hours ago, earlier today, but there's a redirection there normally now. I've added. So anyway, the whole point is that we have the proper IDs there with the proper URL.
Right.
So it's a bit dry like that. There's a few adjustments I need to do. I'm gonna do this whole change on properties with OWASP now. And I'm gonna extract, as discussed, also the test suite in a subschema.
Good.
So like that, it can be reused for the cost spectrum, which makes a lot of sense. And the point is, in contrast with what we have in this set of existing tests here, where we have data, but absolutely there's no explanation of
Right.
what this test is and what canonical and Perl means and how it's used in which context. Here, what we have is to say, we have an input, we have an output. If you have an input as a string, you need to produce decoded components. If you have an input as components, you need to produce a canonical Perl, in all cases. That removes the ambiguity, and tests that are invalid, that should fail by design, are just marked as such.
John, you had a question?
I do. Does that address what happens in the parsing process when invalid is set to true? Presumably, whenever an exception is meant to be raised, the process is stopped. And if it's stopped at a certain stage in the parsing, the remainder of the output values are not generated, presumably, and they're empty in the test objects.
Yeah, so we want to do exactly that. So for instance, if we have an invalid that's true, for instance, like this one.
The scheme is wrong. There's no PKG. It's got something else there.
So that's a good example. This one is an example where that would be, in our case, the input. Like literally, this test here, it wouldn't be Perl, it would be input, and then there's a string.
Yep.
The output, there won't be any output in this
That'll
case.
be null, right?
That would be null, and
Thank
is invalid, true.
Cool. Thank you.
Yeah. So it simplifies and it avoids these things here. If I'm implanting a test for that, I'm scratching my head saying, hey, it's invalid, but I'm still supposed to be able to parse something out of it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's like, and there's still a canonical Perl. It's all, I mean, I understand people are confused there. I don't know who farted that. It's probably me.
Thank you.
But the whole point is to remove that. Input, output, and a few cases where we have expected invalid inputs that are truly unparsable, then we're making that clear.
Yep.
So that's it. Again, there need to be detailed review on the committed documents, and I update the script accordingly.
So how do we get that to closure in a week, or what's going to take to get closure?
Absolutely no problem to have this closed this week. It's going to be ready this week, probably by tomorrow.
Okay, you're going to, yeah, and then we got to get some, some level of review, right? I mean, or
Yeah,
you just
so
publish it and then have the review later.
Then we need to have a review. I don't know. I'll make sure I ask review from everyone. Steve, I truly expect to have reviews from you. Matt, if you're available. We have also invited yesterday Piotr to join as a helper on the spec. He's been very active. He's a small star in his own respect in our world. He's the maintainer of Log4j.
Piotr.
Yeah, Piotr, yes. Yeah, he's one of the current active maintainers on Log4j. So of course he's very popular because they produce the most beautiful and popular vulnerabilities there exist on Earth, right? Well, you have to be popular for something, but he's really nice, very nice guy. He's helping a lot, and I've also offered to Matt Donoghue from Film the same. I don't know whether he will reply. In the past, he's been very helpful, but not willing to go further and put a foot in the door. So we'll see. So that's it on my side. There's one thing, just talking about SMAD, by the way, which is the if you've ever looked at that before, I'm gonna ask whether he's willing to share this document, share this, or move it over to the Perl org. This repo, Perl survey, that's been the survey where he's been able to run on many of the Perl implementations the tests. And I'm gonna want to further this so we can spot all the inconsistencies very quickly with the new test suite, and making sure we can reach out or submit PRs to each and every implementer so we have clean updated implementations. But for instance, there's implementations we have, say the JavaScript implementation in our org here. There's a Git module to point to the repo in questions and the procedure to actually build and run the test there. But you also have that for, I don't know, this is a implementation Elixir of all places. And so I'm grateful because there's really a great base there to make sure we can run this test. The intention there, and again, we're diverging a bit from the Ecma standardization. The intention here is to eventually run that in the CI so we can validate when there's new Perl types, new updates which are made, validate that we run all the test suites on all the different known Perl implementations very quickly and efficiently. So
That sounds great. Good plan.
Okay, and we're at the 9 o'clock hour, so do you have any other? Okay, thanks, Matt.
Yeah. Bye, y'all. Take care.
Bye.
All right. Cheers.
Okay. So I guess that's it for today. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, and you're in the US. Happy 4th of July.
Yeah. Well.
You can
Okay.
stop the recording now.
Let's stop.